Good evening. Welcome to Awake Radio. This is Catherine Waters. It's 6 p.m. and we're going to get right to it because we have Bjorn Englen already on the line with us. So we don't want to waste any time. We have another guest on at 6:30, so we want to make every second count. So Bjorn, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? I'm in sunny California. It's not that sunny today, but it's still warm compared to a lot of places in the world. So can't complain. Everything's great.
We're supposed to have a nor'easter over here tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, some kind of like really bad rain or something like that. I haven't really been paying attention, but so I met you, I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it might have been 07 or 08.
2008, I believe it was.
In Denver at the Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom.
Oh my God, your memory is great. I think that's correct, yeah.
I was a regular there. I did massages for quite a few characters. A band, Wantain, and they were a bit much. But anyway, okay. You were playing with Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yes, I was.
Do you still play with him?
I don't anymore. I actually left his band last year due to some scheduling conflicts that we had or that I had with that. So unfortunately, but I had a great time working with him and a lot of great memories and stuff like that. So yeah.
How is he? Do you keep in touch with him?
Not really, not very much. I talked to some of his band members. I'm really good friends with the drummer, so we talk from time to time. And but I think he's doing great. I think he just finished like a South American tour, I believe. So yeah,
he definitely can play that guitar. That night at Cervantes, when you were playing with Yngwie Malmsteen, if anybody doesn't know who he is, they should definitely check him out. I'm familiar with Yngwie from when I worked at Lemoore, the rock capital of Brooklyn, back in the early part of the 80s, and he played there. Of course, we were all much younger then.
Mm-hmm.
He can definitely play. The Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom is a fairly small venue for Yngwie to be playing at that time.
And yeah, it was surprisingly small. And I don't even know if that place is around anymore. It was old, and I walked in. When I first walked into the venue, I was actually surprised to see a venue like that still standing, because it seemed like it's been around and not renovated in a very long time. So it was, and it was on the smaller side too. I don't even know if that place would fit 500 or 600 people. So it was pretty small, But it was a good show, and I remember it being a good night, and the audience was great and everything. So
I still have really good pictures of the two of you. You and him, and the lighting, I just remember being very red. Like all the pictures of the both of you are just red.
Yeah, I think I do remember that. I remember that night because I had some, my main bass actually, something happened to it. I forget what happened to it. It broke down in the middle of the show. And I had to switch bass guitars. But yeah, I remember the stage lighting being a little dark. I don't remember necessarily being red, but dark, and So yeah.
If you want, I could send you some the pictures that I have of you guys.
Oh sure, yeah, I'd love to see it, or love to see them. Absolutely.
So what have you been doing lately? Like, what have you been up to since you were mentioning a recent song called Life? Like, what is it about?
Life is from my band Soul Sign's latest release, Life in the Dark. It's the name of the album. And Life is a melodic song. It's about, what we all ask ourselves a lot of times what is life all about, but it's also
Yeah.
tied into some of the environmental, concerns that I think we all have these days, and so it's sort of about both of those themes, if you want to call it that, and so I've been working hard with that band, which is my band Soul Sign. I formed a long time ago, and we just released this album Life in the Dark in the fall of 2011. So it's been out a while, but the response has been great, and we've been doing some shows in the United States. We've been doing some shows mainly on the West Coast here in California, and we've been doing some shows in Europe as well. We just played in Scandinavia, in Denmark and Sweden back in May, and was received very well. We had a great time, and we're actually working on a follow-up album for this, and we're going to start recording this in 2014, this next year. So we're excited about that, and we're excited about going back out and playing some more shows and stuff. So I've been working hard with this band mainly, and I've also been touring with Tony McAlpine, who's a pretty well-known guitar player and phenomenal musician, and a great friend. We did a tour in Europe last year, and I've also recently been touring with the official Dio band, which is Ronnie's band, except for Ronnie, of course, because he passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. So I've been playing with them, called Dio Disciples, with Simon Wright and Craig Goldie and Scott Warren, and various singers. And we've been touring all over the place in the United States and South America and places like that. So I've been staying pretty busy, and been doing lots of sessions lately in this fall, playing on various albums, and which will probably also come out next year, some of these albums. And I'm excited about a lot of them. And I just did some clinics back in August for Carvin Bass Guitars, which is my official sponsor, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm staying pretty busy. But yeah, my main focus is Soul Sign. So
Who else is in the band? Anybody that we might know?
yes, on vocals we have Mark Bowles, which used to sing for Yngwie Malmsteen on a few different albums and a few different tours. And is probably the most known voice of Yngwie, and he's also been singing for Scorpions guitar player Uli John Roth, which is actually how we met, because we were in Uli's band at the same time a few years ago, and we met through that. So he's been all over the place doing a lot of stuff. So
the Scorpion song "Screaming in the Night," that's one of my favorite songs by them.
Oh, cool.
Right?
That's a great one. We actually do a cover of Pictured Life, which is super melodic, really high energy tune, which I think is a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I could do that song really well at karaoke.
Oh, cool. Wow. That's some pretty high vocals on that one, so that's pretty impressive.
Well, I used to pretty much practice with Rob Halford, so Judas Priest was like one of my all-time big favorite bands back in the day, and to me, Rob Halford was like God.
Wow. So, yeah, that will definitely train your vocal cords. That's
okay,
awesome.
so you were mentioning environmental, and you called the song "Life in the Dark." So I wanted to ask.
That's the name of the album. That's the name of the album.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, because I have issues with people that, a lot of people are always saying how you got to be positive and you can't be negative and all of that stuff. And I'm one of the shadow dwellers myself, so I welcome other people that are not afraid to be in the dark and not afraid to kind of, like people call it being negative when you start looking into certain issues, and it's really not. You have to kind of embrace things, and so what was it about?
In order to get, I think in order to get out of the dark, you need to face your problems and get to the root of your problems. So I think that's you can't like shy away from reality. Dealing with your issues, I think, is the first step in order to live a better life and be more positive, and so I would agree with you.
So what was it about, like, environmentalism? Like, what kind of things were you hearing that prompted you to, write a song about it?
Well, it was sort of got tied in with just a lot of our songs, I guess, is about life in general, and then this one in particular is more about what's the meaning of life and the questions that we all ask ourselves, I'm
Okay.
sure, and sort of tied in with that was the planet that we live on, and
Yeah.
sort of been a concern, I think, lately more than ever with different issues that we've been facing, like floods and
The
nuclear
Philippines, right?
leaks, or yeah, the Philippines, or Japan, or earthquakes or fires. Living in Southern California, we've not this past year, unfortunately, or this year, but in the last few years, we've had an enormous amount of fires and really crazy and stuff like that. So there's just all kinds of stuff that sort of is a concern, I think, to all of us at this point. We're all on this planet together.
So I'm gonna have Paula play your song, and then we will come back and talk about it.
Okay,
How does that? How does
excellent.
it?
That sounds great.
Okay. So we are back, and that was Bjorn Englen playing bass. The song is called Life, and the album is called Life in the Dark, and the band is called Soul Sign. Is that right?
That is correct.
And can you just go like over a couple of the lyrics? I wasn't able to really grasp. If you could maybe just kind of, run through a couple of what the lyrics were, that would be awesome.
Well, the song's basically about just like I said, issues we all think of, meaning of life and stuff like that. Just one line is like, "Oh no, is the earth round and the sky blue," and all this stuff. Questions. It's basically just stating a fact that we're here on this planet, and then some of the song is also about we can solve all this if we gather and we get together, basically, and work together.
Right.
I
write I've just been like this health person all my life, and I mean, it was kind of, getting more and more clear how, we were just completely disconnected from nature's signals. I mean, I feel like nature's signals are very clear, and we just ignore the cues and the signs like way too much. And the more we continue to do it rather than heed the warning, because again, I just think that it's our conditioning, and maybe we don't like nature's signals, and so we just continue to ignore it, and then just end up perpetuating the disease or the natural disasters. Like, the more we just continue to ignore it, the worse it's going to be. So,
well, of course, but most of the modern world is just controlled by a lot of money, and the people and that have money. So I think it's a fight between the both, and then that's the problem. And what goes into media, which is people claiming that we don't have issues with global warming, and then
right.
then the people fighting back will, of course, some of them will, to prove their point, maybe exaggerate. I don't know, and it becomes a problem where who do you believe, and media plays a big role, I think, in this.
Exactly. So let me ask you that question then. So in your experience in the music world, like right, so how do you encounter, what is that, how does it show up for you with the big money, maybe trying to kind of keep certain focuses out of the spotlight?
Well, I don't necessarily see that. I don't even know. Things are happening so fast. It just seems like the people that are on the business side of music are more concerned with just signing or booking bands that are going to sell or that are already selling. So I don't even know if the lyric content or the messages even play any role at all for them. As far as musicians and artists, I think there's a big concern with environmental issues and humanity and things like that. I think artists seem very sensitive to these things. Unfortunately, I think the business side is no longer set up to work on a long-term thing where these things are even discussed. I don't think it's even an issue. By the time the people, whether it's record labels or booking agents come in to work with a group, I think it's the lyrics have already been written, the messages are already there, and I don't think it's even a concern. So I don't necessarily deal with it, on that level,
So it sounds like you're saying that the music that they want to put out has no nutritional value. Like they just want to sell the public. I kind of call it like GMO music, or, things that don't have any real nutritional value.
Well, I think for most of it, and I think in the style of hard rock and metal, I think it's more where the artists develop themselves and then sell it to the world, to where it's yeah. So it's already like a packaged product when and then when it goes public, basically.
Do you think that, obviously it's increased more over times, like back in the day, say, like, I mean, right, Metallica or Judas Priest or Dio or Ozzy, Black Sabbath, like those guys didn't really sell out.
Well, I think when you go way back, I think that the bands had the same sort of artistic freedom as people do now. It's sort of back to square one that way. I think it was somewhere in between. Like if you look back, maybe 20 years is when I think labels and had a negative input on the artistic freedom of what the bands were doing. So
yeah, because yeah, I mean, heavy metal back, back in the day, and just rock music, hard rock music in general. I mean, the whole point of that music was kind of, to go against the man, to rise up. A lot of Black Sabbath was about things like that.
yeah, I mean, I think it was more of a lifestyle than anything else. I don't think it necessarily had any sort of. Sometimes it had political messages, but I think it had more of a. It was, to me, it had more like musical messages and a stylistic thing and a lifestyle that they were trying to get across. I think with the music and the image, and that sort of, and then that was all new. Too, with the skulls and the devil and hell and all that. That was sort of tied in with the image and the music.
Right, I mean, looking back, it's almost like they're trying to, prepare people to, for the corporations taking over, and not to let yourself just kind of be. One of the parts of the cog, to like rise up. And I mean, like, that's the messages like I used to get out of it. I mean, when I used to listen to Judas Priest, I thought their lyrics were really pretty empowering, and with a pretty good message, like kind of anti-system message.
Right. Well, I think a lot of them had that, and I think they had all sorts of lyrics that's that people sort of are misunderstood with hard rock and metal, and they think it's all about hell and the devil and those kind of messages, but that's not true at all. I think there was a lot of not necessarily, well, political songs. There was a lot of love songs too later on, and
Yeah.
there was all sorts of messages in the music. So
I mean, right, like that. A couple of people, didn't they get taken to court over, kids listening to them and committing suicide and things like that? But when I used to listen to Judas Priest, I used to go jogging, and it used to make me run like that much faster, So for me, that's what I was using that music for. Not
well. Yeah, well, I think for anybody who wasn't listening to it, they sort of misinterpreted the whole thing. Anybody who listened to it, I don't think even thought of it that way. It was just good music, and
yeah.
That was that.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's those people that just want to be positive all the time, and ignore that there really is. I was going to say dark side, so yeah, I guess I will just say a dark side, and a dark side is not a bad thing. I mean, it's part, we have day and we have night. So, how about then we just kind of take the last couple of minutes, and Paula will play the other song that you sent her, and we'll use it on Awake Radio, and hopefully have you back on sometime in the future.
That sounds great.
So yeah, I'm going to thank you now, and
Okay.
we'll go out, and Paula will play your other song, and everybody. Where can people? Do you have a website or a YouTube channel? Anything?
Yes, there's a website for the band is soulsign.us, like the country, and also bjornenglen.com, BJORNENGLEN, and the band and me were all on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube as well. So yes,
yeah,
there's a YouTube channel.
Let me know when you come to New York.
Absolutely.
Or I'll let you know if I ever go to California.
Okay, please do.
All right. Thanks, Bjorn.
Okay. All right. Take care. All right.
Okay.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night. So that again was Bjorn Englen on bass. Sorry, I can't really see the name of the song, Breaking Something. Hopefully breaking the system. And the band is called Soul Sign. So keep your eyes and ears open. And moving right along to our next guest, this is I have never had this many guests on in one show before as tonight. I have 4 guests. I usually have like 2, one in the first hour, one in the second. But we have with us Roger Landry. I'm saying your name right. Is right, Roger?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay.
Woohoo! Sorry, I don't usually interrupt. Love you, Raj.
So yeah,
Thank you, Paula.
Roger has a show here on Awake Radio, correct, Roger?
Yep, it's called the Liberty Beacon Rant, and believe me, I rant.
So yeah, I haven't really been in touch with you recently. So what's been going on? Like, what have you been ranting about? Like, what is your latest? I mean, I know there's a lot to rant about, boy.
Well, the show covers a lot of topics. It's part of, for any of your listeners who are not aware, part of the Liberty Beacon Project. And it's a rather large project. We have 3 websites and 3 more under construction. We do several radio shows, but the one I do with Awake Radio is the only one I do live. The other ones are specials, whereby we get a special guest and we record a show, and it goes out, I think, in a featured article. But on the rant, the Liberty Beacon Rant on Awake Radio, I really enjoy this show because there are so many things being perpetrated on we the people today that your frustration level builds up. Now, if you're like me and you sit in front of this computer, yes, but I sit in front of this computer because I'm retired. I do this literally 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm constantly getting all of this crap. And I'm taking it in, I'm taking it in. Well, when I get a chance once a week to do the Liberty Beacon Rant, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am venting. Now, we're in the middle of a series right now called The 4 Weapons of Mass Destruction Humanity May Not Survive. And this is not weapons that we're using to kill off our enemies. These are weapons that are being used to kill us off, humanity. And I'll give them to you in order. Perpetual warfare, the most immediate, because once you start to lob nukes, everybody goes away. GMOs, because they're proliferated across the entire planet, and we all have to eat every day. Vaccines, because they're full of so many poisons that it's ridiculous. And chemtrails. So right now I'm in the middle of the vaccine portion of the 4 evils. And it gives me a chance to vent off all the frustrations that have been pent up in me over the course of a week. And if you are one of these people who turns your volume up, you will turn it down quickly, because Paula will tell you, I rant. And it's getting to be a very popular show.
Can I just wanted to say something, like, because what I don't understand is, people have legitimate irritations, legitimate angers. I mean, legitimate gripes. And all you get sometimes is like, oh, get over it, or stop complaining. It's like, I've heard that so much in my life. People regarding, your legitimate, completely and utterly valid complaints, like you're the bad guy and you're just a complainer, and why can't you be happy? In other words, adjust yourself to the dysfunction so that things don't look so bad.
Do you know what you've just described? Do you know what you've just described? You have just given an ideal description of a sheeple. Someone who has their head buried so far up their derriere that whatever encroaches into their comfort zone, they would rather find an excuse for it or a way to coexist with it than push back against it. That is the biggest issue people like you and I face. I don't want to use this word, so I won't, but it's itch with a B slapping these people into reality. There are things that need to be railed against.
I call it mental bench pressing. I mean, like it's like people don't want to do their daily mental bench pressing. It's like everybody's lazy. I mean, most people don't exercise. I mean, literally that's what it comes down to is like mental exercising. It's like people are lazy. If anything is a challenge that is calling for their attention, it's like, oh, like they're so fat and out of shape that they don't want to be confronted with how kind of mentally flabby they are. And so it's
Yes.
not, I mean, but I don't get it. Even a little bit. I mean, gosh, a little bit of exercise. I mean, the more, the more people just want everything to be cushy and easy and nice, the more just like ill and out of shape you're just going to be forever. I mean, there's a certain level of fitness that nature demands that people be in. I mean, you don't have to be like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of like mental fitness, but you don't want to be the
Pee Wee Herman?
well, I don't know. Is he out of shape? I would think Pee Wee Herman is even like more on the ball than a lot of sheeple.
Oh, I'm talking mentally. I was speaking mentally. But can I tell you? Can I tell you how this all happened?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you how this all happened. I'm going to start. I'm going to preface this with a comment that anybody can Google. Okay, and about I believe the year was 1980 in a CIA staff meeting. There was a comment made by the head of the CIA, and the comment was, we will know that our program of disinformation has succeeded when everything Americans believe is a lie. So what they have done, okay, over the course of the last 30, 40, 50 years is they have pumped the American public so full of toxic garbage and lies that it has become the norm. It has been predicated by and it has been enhanced by the mainstream media, who we all know are owned by the system. So if this is what you hear every day over and over again, a lie, if it is repeated often enough, becomes the truth to most people. So at this point in time, a vast majority, and I would say probably less because we're waking more people up daily, but a vast majority of this population believe the lie. So when someone like you and I step forward, and of course, for anybody who doesn't know, this was a CIA director, Casey, and Google that. But when people like you and I step forward and we present them with the truth, they have this whole scenario built up over a lifetime, and they look at you like, you're a nut. Where's your tinfoil hat?
But
I don't believe anything you're saying.
But the thing that I don't understand, like I always studied, the body and the way the body works, the mind-body connection, and there's a certain
I remember this.
A certain
You're
kind
a fitness freak.
Yeah, but mental fitness also, and there's just a sort of level of interaction that is normal to have with the environment, like a certain amount of growth that should kind of come automatically and so easily and effortlessly in this life, like the way that we respond to things. And being open and willing to take in new information and not be afraid to admit if we don't know something or we're wrong or we made a mistake. Like all of the ways that we are in this world is just so unnatural. It's like this, it's not normal to be like that. It's not healthy to be that way, to dismiss. You know what I mean? It's like just our whole. How?
If you're given a constant diet of misinformation, it becomes reality to you. Now, the toughest thing for human beings to do is to break down the walls of what they perceive is reality. So that's what you and I and Paula and so many other people in this liberty movement, which I thank God exists, that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to break down with mental battering rams their walls of total disbelief, because they don't believe us. Well, eventually they do, because we stuff enough facts in front of their face. If they have any level of intellect at all, eventually they're going to have to start to question what they believe.
But
So,
doesn't it get a little bit obvious though after a while when you're like when you're on this earth after a few decades and you know that you don't really live a healthy lifestyle and you know that you don't have healthy habits. I mean, is it really that hard to kind of like figure out that you kind of like, you know what I mean? Like I don't get it.
It is, and you know you're going to recognize this term as soon as I say it, okay? Because it is becoming very, very popular, and a lot of people are using it. I use it all the time. It's called the dumbing down of America. It really, really is. So
you got to know that you got to know that you're not fit. I mean, like if you're going to your job every day, like you know that you're not doing what you want to be doing in life. You know that you're not expressing what you want to express. Like you got to kind of feel a little bit like sort of sluggish and like the previous guest who is doing what they want to do in life. They're writing their music, they're traveling around. I mean, like that's the way you're kind of supposed to be. I mean, there's a healthy way of living life and there's a not a healthy way of living life, or there's kind of a little bit less than healthy way of living life. And you got to kind of feel that you're not really living as fully and as happily and, optimally as you could be. I mean, how do you not see that after you're whatever, 30, 40, 50 years old?
It's the dumbing down of America. What it has conditioned so many of us in this country to do is to live within a comfort bubble. And inside that bubble, you have your six-pack every night, you have your sweetheart sitting next to you on the couch, you have Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, you have your Xbox games, you have your pack of cigarettes, you might have a little bit of ganj sitting next to you, but you're living within that comfort bubble. And that is the way America has been conditioned to live. All the toys, all the GMO food that make you feel good, that tastes good, every bit of entertainment you could possibly want on your big screen TV that gets 156 channels, and you really don't need anything. I'm going to ask you a question. When I was a kid, I knew everybody in my neighborhood on a first-name basis. We talked on a regular basis. We had picnics, we had parties. Nowadays, how many people do you think don't even know the name of the person who lives across the street from them because they are so stuck in that comfort bubble? And
I don't
anything
even know the people
that pops that bubble.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't even know the people who live across the hall.
But this is so true today. And I got to tell you something. If and when society does collapse in this country, if we do or when we have an economic collapse, the best infrastructure you're going to have to help you and support you are going to be the people in your immediate community. Well, I have a lot of pity for a lot of people in this country today because they haven't got a clue who lives in their community. And how
scary. That's a scary.
Scary.
And even families, though, unfortunately, I mean, like I recently had, an incident. A family member of mine had a bit of an accident, and over the course of a bit of time, kind of didn't really, how do I say, pay attention to the cues that the body gives, until it got pretty to a pretty serious level and
catastrophic. Yeah.
And I completely relate that, and most people don't think of it the way that I think of it. Like I completely relate it to capitalism and the system being designed to keep us away from ourselves, and that kind of like overly macho, sort of mentality that even a lot of women are conditioned to have. That any kind of gentleness, listening, understanding, or slowing down, or admitting that you feel some kind of pain or whatever is looked at like you're like a wimp or something.
Well, again, it all goes back to you can't invade my comfort bubble. And we really need, as a matter of fact, what I do is I consider myself to be a pin, and I go around popping every bubble I find. Get the hell out of your comfort zone, out of your comfort bubble, wake up to reality, because I've got to tell you something. When everything goes to crap in a handbasket, your comfort bubble isn't going to do you a damn bit of good.
Well, it's actually going to do you harm. It's going to do the exact opposite of good.
Exactly.
You know, you're building a bank account of like so much. See, like that's what I mean. It's, you know, I think of, you know, my family member that had this happen to them, and they sort of had their own little personal kind of economic crash thing happen. So like I think about that and magnify it, you know, nationally or even globally, and I think, oh my God, like if that could happen to like one person, you know, and to just ignore kind of like obvious signals, you know, and then, you know, whatever, like the money and you can't afford to be sick kind of thing, so you just start blocking it out. So if that can happen, you know, to somebody personally, I mean, imagine globally what's going to happen when people just continue to ignore the signs and symptoms of health over just so many decades.
I published an article 2 days ago, which has absolutely become one of the most popular articles of this month. And it so speaks to what you're saying. There are so many people in this country who actually believe that the economy is getting better, that unemployment's getting better, that Obama's doing a great job, when in reality, unemployment is still on the rise at a catastrophic rate. The economy is about to collapse. The dollar is being kicked out of one country after another. The dollar is about to collapse. And the Russian Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin, made a comment. And this is right on the front of a meme I made up and put out across the network, and that went viral. And what he is saying, and this is a direct quote from him, Barack Obama is either an idiot or he is intentionally destroying the American economy. Now, if the Russian premier can make a comment like that, someone who was born into communism and graduated from the college of the KGB is making a comment like that, yet 60 to 70% of the American people are totally unaware of this and really believe that the country is getting healthier by the day, when in fact we're on a respirator and somebody's about to pull the plug.
That's exactly what I've said. Like I really believe that just having a job and having an existence and living paycheck to paycheck is exactly like being on a ventilator. It's like being on life support.
Yep.
It's exactly what it is.
Yes.
You know, you're I mean, I watched a really good documentary on Netflix called Money and Medicine.
Yes.
You know, and they were talking about, right, you know, with family members and when to pull the plug, you know. And I think about people in jail. I think about people, you know, that are barely existing, you know, with these like poverty wages. And I'm like, they're on a different, you know, like another level of like life support also.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there's all different levels of health. I mean, just because you're not literally on a respirator, you know, and some of the family members like they don't want to say goodbye to their family. So this one story of this son that didn't want to pull the plug. He was literally calling it, I forget what was, oh God, what was the word that he used to execution. He called it an execution to just let his mom die naturally. Like people get so used to the life support that they think that's normal, you know? And natural death is like an execution. I thought that was like, hello, like,
yeah,
you know,
I had to make
to get in touch with their coordinates. Like we're so out of touch with like our coordinates, you know.
I had to make that decision. My father was on life support, and my family gathered around that hospital bed, and we made that decision as a family. And I have 5 brothers and a sister, and my mother was there. And it was a unanimous decision that keeping him alive artificially is not life. If the brain has stopped to function, if there's no higher function in the brain whatsoever, but yet you're keeping the blood circulating, my father was already dead.
What about the body, though, too? I mean, people can be awake in there, and be, have like physical injuries. I mean, right there, like again, like there's just
so severely handicapped, but yet still being mentally aware, just not being able to communicate.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's all different kinds of like injuries. Like, I mean, you can have all your, your awareness, conscious
Your
awareness, to be
faculties.
able to speak, even, but just, I mean, like Christopher Reeve, so to speak. Christopher Reeve.
Well, I've got to tell you, as long as I have the ability to think and feel emotion, then I am as alive as I need to be. Now, not being able to walk or go to the bathroom by myself or feed myself, these are handicaps. But if I have the ability to think, if my brain is functioning in a normal capacity, then no, I don't ever want anybody to throw the switch on me. Because as long as I have my full faculties, I have something to contribute to this world.
Yeah. There was, I don't want to get off subject, but
there is no subject. The world is our subject.
I watch a lot of documentaries, and there was a documentary of this back in the 80s, like a really good classical guitar player. He went on, of course, to be like a kind of a heavy metal guitar player, and he was going to start playing with David Lee Roth, and he came down with ALS.
Oh.
And, but like his family was just amazing. I was like in absolute awe that some people have like the kind of family that this guy had, his parents and his, everybody just really because he was such a great guy. I mean, he was a great guy, before, he obviously came from a really great family that helped him to get where he was initially. And then even after he was making music, even after he got the ALS, and he couldn't speak or anything. But, with the whole Jeff Becker, I believe his name was.
I know who you're talking about.
Jason Becker.
Jason Becker.
Yeah. And, I mean, it was really like, what a story. I was like amazed. But again, without support, it's the support system that you have.
You just brought up another topic I'd like to touch on real quick because I'm running out of time here. And that is the family grouping.
Oh,
that is another area that the elite have been attacking. Not just what we know and what we believe, but the family structure in this country has been under attack for several generations now. And the easiest way to bring a society, a massive society like we have in the United States, under control, one of the mechanisms they use is to destroy family structure. Things like Common Core education that teach our children that they need to observe what their parents are doing and then go in and tell the school administrators and the teachers. And basically what they're doing is turning our kids into spies. But we have been breaking down the family structure, or our government has, for decades now. And family support that I knew when I was a kid is all but gone today. Families go their own way. They hardly ever talk. They might see each other and actually have a conversation once a day for 3 or 4 minutes. But the family structure is in ruination. And
that's my favorite subject. I mean, that's the subject that I have really has been like the main focus of my entire life. I mean, when I was really young, I read so many books. John Bradshaw was one of my, I think I've shared this on the radio before. Back in the 90s, I was in love with this guy. If you ever look him up on YouTube, I mean, I read like almost every one of his books. I mean, the guy was a genius. The way that he described the interaction of the family system. And I've kind of come to think of the interaction of the family system, kind of like a group of muscles, like just body parts that are connected. And just like in your body, I mean, if your body parts are not, interrelating in healthy ways, I mean, then the system is not healthy. And I, because I grew up in some domestic violence and divorce, and I used to try to bring this subject. Yeah, like when I was a kid, I was just, when you're a kid, you're as connected to nature as you can get. I mean, the way that you behave in life is just a completely natural way to just say what you feel and have your mind and body connected. And what comes out of your mouth is completely organic. And when the people that you're surrounded by don't like that, you're kind of holding that mirror up to them, and then they make you out to be the one who's off the mark, or like you're wrong, or like how dare you, where the authority, like you're not allowed to critique us, kind of thing. We have the power. I mean, and so like that, to me, that's how we learn to accept the debt. We learn to accept the debt. Like if you don't have a good family, that's how you're comfortable with debt. You're comfortable with things being like not that bad. It's like you're lowering your standard. You get used to, it's like normal for things to be like so dysfunctional. So if your government is taking your rights away, it's like you're not going to notice.
Well, you might notice, but what you do is you make excuses for it. I'm serious. And a lot of people in this country are aware that we've lost a lot of our rights, but when you talk to them about it, the first thing they say is, well, it doesn't affect me. Well, you know what? It actually does, but you have made so many excuses for what's going on around you that, in fact, you are attuning yourself to the lack of rights and the lack of freedoms. So it becomes part of that comfort zone, part of that bubble I was talking about, okay? As long as my inability to have freedom of speech doesn't enter into my bubble. In other words, if I sit on my couch every night and watch TV and drink my six-pack and smoke my cigarettes, then what difference does it make to me that I can't get on the internet and say anything I want? It doesn't make any difference to me. So I make an excuse for it. I find a place for it within my comfort zone. And this is the dumbing down of America. This is exactly what it means. It doesn't mean that Americans are stupid. What it means is that Americans are so used to all of their toys and their comfort bubble that nothing else seems to really bother them. When if they stepped outside of that bubble and looked around, a hell of a lot would be bothering them. And we need to drag them, kicking and screaming, out of these comfort bubbles.
Right. I mean, you're not growing if you're comfortable all the time. I mean, comfortable over time is not such a good thing. I mean, there's a healthy amount of discomfort. I mean,
it breeds complacency.
Yeah, it's like not taking a deep breath. You never get the stale air out of your lungs. It's like you're walking around with like stale air.
Yes.
But anyway, so the half an hour mark is kind of winding down. I hope to have you back on. I mean, it was pretty good. So we're definitely on the same page with that whole breaking down of the family system. That's, to me, that is really key. That is key. It's key. I mean, there's no question about it. That's the foundation. Healthy relating, forget it, man.
I will tell you, Kat, if you ask, and I have, believe me, I'm very, very busy, but if I can possibly make the time, I would enjoy coming back. The Liberty Beacon Project likes to get the word out across as many venues as we can. You've been a great hostess, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Roger.
You're listening to Awake Radio, straight talk for the awake and aware.
Okay, we are back, and our next guest has created, written, produced, and did the research for the documentary called Decades of Deception, which I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a really great deal of it, but because there's so much information and I had to keep pausing it and rewinding it so many times to absorb it all, it ended up taking like 4 hours to watch it. So we have Ryan Dawson from Japan. Actually, it's what time? It's 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. tomorrow. You could think of it.
Yeah, how does the future feel like? I mean, is things getting better or worse?
Well, I mean, I think things are getting better. If you look at the Iranian peace talks and things are starting to turn a corner. But I'm glad you had a hard time watching Decades of Deception, because that's exactly what I wanted. I packed it with information, and I was hoping people would watch it and rewatch it and rewatch it, because it's kind of a macro version timeline of horrible things government and intelligence industries have done. Or I call them industries. They call them themselves agencies, but I call them industries because that's what they are. Over a 60-year period, starting from the Korea War on up to 2010, and it's just endless.
It's like drinking a shot of wheatgrass juice. It's like packed.
Well, I mean, anybody that has a problem with that's got a problem with conspiracies needs to watch this film, because what people don't realize, that conspiracy is a dirty word because there are a lot of charlatans out there with some off-the-wall things, but every covert operation that has ever been carried out by any intelligence agency is, by definition, a conspiracy, because you've got a bunch of people getting together and lying about something that's otherwise illegal, and usually murdering a bunch of people, all in secret.
Yeah, but I mean, now things are not even so secret. I mean, it's almost pretty much like it's getting so much more out in the open.
Yeah, and their excuses are getting more and more sad. You can really see that it's because of the internet. I mean, if you could contrast, let's say, the first Gulf War to the second Gulf War, which were not that far apart, but you look at there were worldwide protests before the second war in Iraq, before the war even started. And you're having 500,000 people in New York City, you had 1 million people in London, just all over the world protesting the war. Then you look at the first Gulf War, which was also based on deception and lies. I mean, that was a Hilton Knowlton, Tom Lantos created war, and there were just yellow ribbons everywhere, and there weren't any protests at all. And the reason they could get away with it was because the internet wasn't around then, and it was for the second time around, for the second war, and so the information could get out, the media monopoly could be broken, and that was 2003. So now, I mean, the internet's much larger. Even during the second Gulf War, there wasn't a Facebook yet. There wasn't even a YouTube yet. A lot of the social network sites didn't exist. A lot of radio shows like this probably didn't exist. And so we have a definite advantage now. So the future is looking better for Team Justice.
What about the NSA?
Yeah, but at least we know about it. I mean, that again, like, we've known since 2006 that they were doing that. I mean, it was reported in newspapers and things. I think the naive thing was that a lot of people wrongly assumed that when Bush left office that was the end of that, and Obama wasn't going to continue it. And of course, as with everything, Obama just made it worse and bigger. That's what he did with all of Bush's policies. But unfortunately, people tend to vote for people and support people based on psychological gratification. So all somebody has to do is kind of sloganeer some vague thing like hope or change or yes we can or whatever, like Obama did, and they'll just fill in the blank with whatever is psychologically gratifying. If they want him to be anti-war, he will be in their mind, even though he isn't actually. I mean, this is a guy who, as a senator, co-sponsored to put the sanctions on Iran, the bill for that. He's voted to keep the Patriot Act 3 times. He voted to finance the war in Iraq 3 times. He voted for every act of violence possible. So when he became president, nobody should have been shocked that he's going to up the drone policy, triple the size of the war in Afghanistan. He tried to stay in Iraq as long as possible. We were there until December of 2011, which was the agreement that the Iraqis had made themselves with the Bush administration of when to pull out, and Obama tried every excuse in the world to try and stay. But people just they vote against people rather than for someone. They say, well, he's got a D next to his name, so he must be different than the Republicans, and they don't look at the policies or the record of the individuals they're voting for. So
It's like
a lot of people have a lot to learn.
Yeah, love is blind kind of thing.
Well, it's like they needed it. They needed change, and so they were willing to believe the first guy to get up on the hill and say it. They wanted it to be true.
I think a lot of it has to do with, I bring this topic up a lot because I hear it a lot. Oh, be positive. So it's kind of, people want to just look at the positive. They don't want to look at the the not so nice things. And so, to question a person, or to look at that, to really take a look at who they are before you just kind of, open up to them and let them in. I mean, look at the TSA. I mean, they don't let us get away with anything. I mean, they're feeling us up left and right. So why the heck should we just, with open arms, let people in, just because
there's one thing the TSA does let us get away with, and that's bringing weapons onto planes. Because in all the blind tests and all the testing they've done on the TSA, if you really want to, people can still sneak things onto a plane. So that security hasn't been upped at all. All they've done is wasted a lot of money and made flight travel, more expensive, and you're kind of guilty until proven innocent.
And humiliating. I just wanted to on the previous guest, Roger Landry, he's got this post that reads, U.S. generals now take action to watch Obama. It says General Vallely said the U.S. faces a battle that is unknown to generations of Americans, and that the fate of the nation is now in our hands to enforce the Constitution and severely limit the federal government and its out-of-control spending. I wasn't sure if, I just kind of saw that just a little bit ago, and I thought I would, maybe mention it in case you weren't aware. I mean,
we certainly have out of control spending, but where have they been? I mean, over 51% of our discretionary taxes are spent on the military itself. I mean, there's a $1 trillion sinkhole on all of our military escapades, which are completely unnecessary. Bombing people in Yemen and Pakistan, financing Al Qaeda in Syria, giving the Israelis, which is an absolute fascist state, which is ethnically cleansing their neighbors, billions of dollars every year, giving billions of dollars to Egypt, which they won't call a coup, even though it was a coup, because if you label it as that, you're legally not allowed to give them aid. They're financing Paul Kagame in Rwanda, who's butchered millions of Africans in the Congo. They're supporting Al-Shabaab into Saudi Arabia. I mean, if all this foreign aid, it's not foreign aid. Mostly it's predatory loans, or it's forgiven loans, aka grants, to absolute despots. I mean, the Saudis are getting so much money from our military and industrial complex, and these are people who won't even allow women to drive cars. And the Israelis get more foreign aid than anybody in the world, and they're literally bulldozing down houses for the chosen race of God, self-proclaimed. I mean, it's Nazi-like stuff. And so until we cut that money, I'm all against the bailouts and everything too, of course. But stealing from people is not nearly as bad as stealing and murdering people, and we've got to stop both.
So let me ask you then about terrorism. You hear that word, everything is, terrorist. So what is your take on using that?
If communist, or drug dealer, they always have some boogeyman. And the best way to fight terrorism would be to stop engaging in it ourselves.
Exactly. The movie Dirty Wars kind of addressed that. Right, you're just creating, and again, they always have a label that really doesn't fit what they're calling, so right, they're calling someone a terrorist when all that person really is having sort of a normal reaction to their family being blown up.
Yeah,
I mean,
what would we do? What would our country do in the same situation? And the same thing when they used to say communist, and I'm not pro-communist or anything. I think it's a screwed up economic system. But like in my film Decades of Deception, I mentioned Operation Washtub for just one of the examples. What they did is they went and planted weapons, Soviet weapons, in Nicaragua as a pretext to invade Guatemala. So they're saying that they went and discovered weapons that they put there themselves and said, aha, you're in league with the communists. When they knew that wasn't true, because it's their own weapons they put there. They just wanted a pretext.
So I
for
mean,
regime
okay,
change.
so
But they sold it there.
The value of the dollar has gone down so much, and I mean, maybe people have to work like so much more to keep up, which makes them that much less able to kind of keep up on what's going on, which in my mind, that should alert you right there, to something being wrong. Like that people don't have the time to be looking into this stuff, and so they just take like Fox News's word for it, or Obama's word for it. And
sure,
really,
I mean, Fox News and MSNBC are just the left and right hand of the state. If you look at the media conglomerates that own the mass media, they all go back to the Pentagon, all the parent companies. It's just one big zaibatsu, as we'd say in Japanese. It's a network of state-authorized talking points. They literally have talking points. That's why you'll see the same uniform catchphrases, often in the same order, on supposedly different channels. And it's just a joke. And the dollar's gone down a lot more than people know.
right.
Peter Schiff has talked about this a lot too. If you look at the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and just the cost of everyday living and everyday goods are going up a lot. But what they always do is they compare the dollar to other currencies, but the other currencies have also been going down. We've been seeing austerity worldwide, where the standard of living is dropping dramatically. But then they use that relative to each other rather than just your past self. You can say, what did the groceries cost last year compared to this year? Very simple things. I mean, people know from their own receipts how much gas is going up, food's going up, etc. They cannot buy as much as they used to be able to buy, not only for foreign goods, but even domestically. It's just not worth it because of all this quantitative easing, influx of trillions of dollars into the system, which started at the top and never trickles down.
And because everything is made in China too, so it's it's all like fairly low in cost, and so right, like that's why people are buying things from China, because it's
low in cost to manufacture, but that doesn't mean these big companies pass on that savings to the consumer. And China basically has virtually slave labor and no environmental laws. It's not everything made in China is made by slaves, but there are a lot of sweatshops and factories with suicide nets and people in complete work or starved conditions in China. It's a horrible communist country. It is not anything to model after or get excited about how they're developing or anything, because you cannot judge a nation by its richest people. You have to judge them by their poorest. And China has 200 million people working for $2 a day.
I mean, could you imagine? It's like, let's judge a country by how much a few people abuse the rest.
But that's what they do. That, like, even in the U.S., they judge the economy by the stock market. But the stock market is only an indicator of, are the richest people in the world a little richer today than they were yesterday?
Yeah,
their portfolio up notch.
The poor people are just not even part of the equation. I mean, when it's a clear indication, that's what's like so bizarre. It's like they're dismissing the clear indication that the country is not working as an indication that it is working. I mean, it's
exactly. Like, are we consolidating wealth at the top? Hooray! I mean, what's the mean level of income? What's the unemployment rate? What's the CPI? What you ought to get those numbers, and you can figure out how the standard American, Canadian, or whatever you're judging is living. But instead, they say, is Warren Buffett making more money now than he was yesterday? I mean, that's the judgment of, well, if our top stocks are doing well, if our biggest corporations are doing well, then everyone must be. And usually they have no relation to each other at all.
So that's what I mean. So there has to be some kind of like Stockholm syndrome that people are suffering from, in order to think that, I don't know, by Warren Buffett getting richer, that's doing you any good. You know what I
And by
mean?
the way, Warren Buffett was selling the bailouts as this wonderful thing, but he had millions, tens of millions of dollars invested in the financial institutions who he needed to have a bailout. And this mortgage-backed security fraud was just pure theft. I mean, they actually paid rating agencies to lie and give AAA ratings to these CDOs with just big packages of subprime mortgages, basically, and they sold them off as if they were as good as government bonds. It was total deception. It's totally illegal, and nobody went to jail. They got paid.
I mean, so what? Like, I mean, you're a fairly young person. You're from the U.S. And so
Yeah.
what made you go to Japan?
Bush got reelected.
Oh, so then you've been in Japan for a while.
Well, I've been here, and I went back to the U.S. From 2008 to 2010, and then the dollar dropped to about 75 yen, so I came back to Japan.
So, okay,
about
like
75
just give a
cents.
little bit of your history. Like how did you get into all of this stuff? I mean,
sure.
You're obviously, pretty,
I started when I was a teenager. Actually, I started when I was like 10 years old. I remember arguing about why we need a line item veto to cut pork out of bills. I remember getting all into the debates with Dukakis and Bush seniors when I was a real like second grade or something. But I kind of gave up on it all until I was a teenager. And when the internet came around, I had a site mainly for Native American issues. That was my passion, and because I feel like that nobody deserved a voice more. And then I just kept, as I learned more, and I kept adding more issues and talking about things that I'd ran all the time about. I made a little web page on AOL Hometown, and this is important for people to know because when I was doing this activism, and I probably had 12 people reading it or whatever. I had no hope of winning or ever being on television or any things I've done now. It's just I was fighting injustice not because I thought I could win. I fight injustice because it's injustice, and I had no idea that how big the internet was going to explode and all what was going to happen in the future. I was just doing it because it was the right thing to do. And I guess after September 11th, my site really took off because I ended up making a film about 9/11, but I just converted everything into making an anti-war site, and I was very active against the Second Iraq War. And from there, some people started helping me, and I changed my sites around, and then I started getting on radio programs. I predicted the 7/7 bombings in London, so when I did that, a lot of people had me on the radio shows and saying, "How'd you know that? What are you doing?" And then I started making films, and
okay.
It came along. So when YouTube came around, it used to only be 10 minutes, videos, and they censor everything on there. But it's gotten better. And I used to put things on Google Video when they had that back in the day, and then MySpace, and then Facebook, and so on. And so as social media has grown, so have I. And the more I know that I can make impact, now that I know that I was on Russia Today 2 days ago talking about the P5+1 peace talks in Geneva, and I can routinely go on the news now, and I can really make an impact now. But that all started with like a dozen people on a really lame homepage on America Online, But that's how it began. And I left for Japan in 2005, in August or September, around there. It was shortly after the 7/7 bombings. I decided to get out of the U.S. I was getting threatening phone calls and things.
Oh, really? I guess you probably can't talk about that. But how did you end up?
But yeah, I mean, I just decided to leave. I wanted to leave anyway. I wanted to travel and see, other countries anyway for just completely non-political reasons. But
Did you pick Japan? Like, why Japan?
because Japan is so different, and I knew so little about it. That was my real. I just wanted to see a completely different culture. I was just very interested in Japan since I was probably 6 years old.
And they
Um,
don't have the same level of, slavery and pollution that they
Japan
have
has
in China.
90%. No, it's a 90% middle class, and people talk about how the Great Recession for 20 years that Japan has had. But I would say quit judging countries by their stock market. I think this decentralization of wealth has been a good thing. You talk to people who lived in Japan through all that, and yeah, in the 80s, Japan used to have 50% of all the money in the world. I mean, they were kicking butt in the standards that are used to judge nations. But what they were doing, yeah, what they were doing wasn't the nicest of things. And having the bubble crash, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. But you're thinking maybe countries shouldn't be built with a few billionaires on the top and everyone else struggling. Now Japan is in 90% middle class, the longest life expectancy, like in the top five in healthcare. I think number three in education. Like just they whatever measuring stick, whatever you want to use, they're winning. Except stock market. Now, right
See,
now they have a bad prime minister. Shinzo Abe is not, but still, relative to Barack Obama or Netanyahu or some of the crazies that are out there, Japan's still doing fine.
so you said you don't judge a country by its stock market. I mean, right? Just like an individual doesn't maybe want to be judged by the way that they look, or maybe a guy doesn't want to be judged by how much money he has or the kind of car he drives. I
Sure,
mean,
yeah.
right. It makes sense to look at it a little bit more, deeper qualities rather than just looking at a country for its stock market.
Yeah, or like how strong its military is or something. The U.S. has a powerful military, but what other countries, even with remotely the fraction of the market that the U.S. has, have people dying because they're going to debt for their health care?
Right.
And that is the largest, the number one reason people are in debt, even more than housing prices or anything. It's medical bills, and people are literally dying by avoiding the hospital or losing all their savings trying to save a loved one who has cancer or something because of the
What?
U.S. for-profit system in healthcare, which is protected by government regulations. The Medicare, for example, they can't negotiate prices with big pharma to get the prices of drugs down because the government has protective regulations preventing them from negotiating. And that's the
It's
main problem with the healthcare system in the US is the total cost of procedures and drugs.
So what do you think the American people need to do?
Wow, they need Medicare for all or some kind of single payer system. There are a lot of systems out there that work that could be copied, but it's not going to happen until we can have the separation of business and state. And
Right.
we have a lot of low information voters who keep perpetuating the system because they're voting on wedge issues like gay marriage and things that in the long run really are social issues and not that important compared to war and healthcare and debt and bailouts and the much larger issues.
So
Because you're not
what,
going to
what
have any social programs once we go broke. Whatever
why
it is you like, we're not going to have money for any of it soon.
why do you think the US is over in the Middle East? Like the real reasons that they're over there.
The Israeli lobby, just no doubt. There is no benefit. There was no benefit for the U.S. to invade Iraq. There is no benefit for the U.S. to put a target on Iran, and there's no reason to foster factional fighting in Syria. It's an Israeli plan, but they've purchased our Congress because they are one of the only countries that has an unregistered foreign agent that can openly bribe Congress, who can personally profit from these misadventures in the military, because it's not their money they're losing. They're giving away other people's money. They're giving away your money. They're giving away my money. Well, not giving away my money anymore. I don't pay taxes in the U.S. anymore, but
Yeah.
uh, it's the Israelis. I mean, it's the old plan from their own policy papers. I mean, you can look at the Iraq War. It wasn't about oil. I mean, or the petrodollar. That's one of my pet peeves. I mean, the euro didn't even exist when the propaganda started about Saddam Hussein and trying to have regime change in Iraq. And all they did was recycle lies that they'd been saying in the 90s that caught on in the 2000s after 9/11. They had enough political clout to get away with it. But all that junk about the anthrax and the mobile weapons labs and all the WMDs and things, these are things that were reiterated that had been said before by Richard Paul and Paul Wolfowitz and all these Israeli partisans, dual citizens with Israel who worked in the Pentagon, Louis Libby, Douglas Feith, who even created a special office inside the Pentagon called the Office of Special Plans, whose sole purpose was to generate a war in Iraq for Israeli interests. And Paul Wolfowitz is they had Feith and Zell. He has sister, a settler in Haifa. I mean, these guys are crazy. And George Bush Sr. used to call them the crazies in the basement. That's pretty bad when Bush Sr. is calling someone crazy. You got to be really crazy.
7 countries in 5 years, I think it is. Their plan.
That's the plan. Wesley Clark had that out, and that's the plan. But they've had this since the 80s when they drove Iran and Iraq into a war for 8 years. They fought each other. That's when Saddam was on our team, so to speak. But you see this constantly, and that's in the film too. I like to point out how much the CIA outsources to organized crime. And it doesn't matter if you want to call them cartels like Fast and Furious with the Mexican drug cartels, or you want to call them warlords as in Afghanistan, like with the Mujahideen. And then there's MEK, there's Jandala, there's Al-Nusra, there's Al-Shabaab, there's of course, Al-Qaeda itself have all been financed by the CIA. And you can go all the way back into the 50s with Operation Ajax in Iran. You've got, or the Contras, maybe people remember in the 80s. And then, of course, the La Cosa Nostra and the actual mafia. To assassinate people, for coup d'etats, for rent-a-crowds. This has been an ongoing tactic.
And it's pretty out in the open. I mean, it doesn't take much if someone really wanted to find out. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah. It's right.
Contra, I mean, the CIA's plane. They crashed a plane full of drugs. What happened? Ollie North was on trial before the world and talked about plausible deniability and wasn't even ashamed of it. There's someone that should have been in jail for life, and I believe he ran for president after that. And lost.
Then they throw poor Bradley Manning in jail. I mean, but anyway, Bill Still is
in jail, and they put Mordecai Vanunu is the original whistleblower, and he had Russ Tice and Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning. Bradley Manning, I mean, for Bradley Manning to be in jail when these bastards at Goldman Sachs have robbed people of everything are just getting.
You get thrown in jail, the more you embarrass them is really what it comes down to.
That's right.
But so Bill Still is going to join us. We'll just take a really a quick break, and then we'll talk about like how you kind of met or got involved with Bill Still.
Okay.
And so we'll take a quick break.
You're listening to Awake Radio. Straight talk for the awake and aware.
Okay, we are back for the last segment of Organic News here on Awake Radio, and we have Ryan Dawson still with us, the creator of the documentary Decades of Deception. And we also have Bill Still joining us. I think this might be your third time with us, Bill. But you're the one, Bill, who recommended Ryan for me to have him on. So how do you guys know each other? In what capacity do you?
Well, I've been on his show 2 or 3 times, and the first 2 times I was on, it came right in the middle of a flurry of a bunch of interviews, and so I kind of lost track of who was who. But I remembered the voice, that this was a really sharp guy, and I've subsequently recounted a story that he told me, I think, during the first interview, that even though he lives in Japan, everybody that he hangs out with his age really the only thing they want to talk about is monetary reform. And I've retold that story at least a dozen times.
And so, yeah, you've been on his show a couple of times, you said? Brian, you got a show?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, we actually was on last week too. Yeah, I've got a show, ANC Report. It's the Anti-Neocon Report, and I also did a show. I work for Sybil Edmonds, who is an FBI whistleblower. You know her. That was Boiling Frogs Post, and he was on that show too. And I do like to talk about monetary reform because that is a big issue. And actually, Bill is the one who opened my eyes to that a long time ago. And so that's why everybody probably demands his knowledge on that subject. But we talk about other things as well.
It seems like what's happening is that, the people that are pulling all the strings are turning money into a mirror image of themselves, something that has absolutely no value.
They seem to be, and Bill and I talked about this, and I agree with his opinion, there seems to be a sort of concerted effort globally to inflate simultaneously for a lot of central banks.
Well, it's the only way they can cover up what they're doing. And so if just the Fed continued with quantitative easing all by itself, it would become apparent as the currency spreads continued to diverge. And so the only way they can really do it is to all inflate simultaneously and hope that holds off the evil day. But, this complementary currency thing in the form of cryptocurrencies, it just really caught my imagination here in the last week. I suddenly figured out what was going on, and that's these cryptocurrencies are just a form of a complementary currency. It's a way for we the people to get around this debt-based system, and those who figure it out earlier are going to fare much better as time goes on.
It's like a monetary lifeboat, like an an inflatable monetary life raft.
Oh yeah, lifeboat. I thought you said light bulb, and I couldn't figure that out. Yeah, life raft. Yeah, we've there's a Noah's Ark out there, and I believe that's in the form of this new currency called Quark, which just started in July, and I would urge everybody to go on and look at my latest report. I don't get any money out of it. This is just a lifeboat that these Quark developers have given through my channel to people who listen to me because it's a really good deal. And, you all could put $10 or $100 into it and really secure your financial future just with that much.
So then you think that this Quark coin is better than quantitative easing?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just it. It actually works in inverse proportion to that. The first attempt was really Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has some serious flaws, but it's still 1,000 times better than what we've got. And Bitcoin now is just off the races. I believe it was nearing $1,000 a Bitcoin at this point, and it started out, just for tenths of a penny per Bitcoin. So Quark is in that same curve right now, and it's just a way out of the system and onto a system where money is much more plentiful, and it just depends on doing a few simple steps on your computer, and all of a sudden the light bulb comes on.
Well, I want to thank you for sending me some of those Quarks. I appreciate that. You said that due to you, it doubled or tripled in value?
Well, no, there was just a story that I just put up on my latest still report tonight, just half an hour ago. There was a story in something called Crypto Life, which is the major blog on cryptocurrencies, and their head reporter just did a story on it and said, why is it that Quark has increased 2,000% in the last 4 days, despite the fact that it's not yet on the Chinese currency markets? And
because it was on the Bill Still report.
Right, that's what he attributed it to, and that's amazing. I didn't know, I had that much ability to influence people, but I guess it has.
I
I
have.
think you do, and you have much bigger numbers than what they show, as I explained before. YouTube is not the most honest with that stuff.
Yeah.
I have the article that you sent me, and it's it says now why is Bill interested in Quark of all currencies, and it seems to have like it makes 3 points. The first, it says because he understands economics and money systems. 2, he, like many others, has a concern around the centralization issues of Bitcoin. And 3, he feels that Bitcoin went from virtually unknown to mined with ASICs, specialized hardware. So I explained the distribution method of the Quark system. He likes the idea of a grassroots type cryptocurrency that cannot be cornered by a very few people. This cannot be done with Quark, as I explained, as the distribution was effectively done by computers. The price has been depressed, and now anyone can have Quark.
Yeah, if you want to know some I was saying, if you want to know some problems with Bitcoin, you should have on Carl Denninger. We actually talked about it. He was on my show. We were talking about thorium, but off air, we talked about Bitcoin for a while, and I wish I recorded it because that could have been a show all by itself. But you should have him on, or I'll have him on in the near future, and he can explain very well the problems with Bitcoin, but it's different for quarks.
Well, I guess, because Bitcoin, it was the first. I mean, it's only normal that it's, that the first trial run is going to need a bit of tweaks. And so, other people can learn from Bitcoin's mistakes and just improve, like the Quark coin has done.
Yeah, well, these guys were the developers. Very specifically told me about it first because they could have just gone straight to the Chinese exchanges and the thing would have exploded. It's going to explode no matter what. Nothing can hold it back at this point. I'm just trying to let people who are followers of me, who like me, in on it and try to convince them, yeah, this is a good thing. Give it a try, and it could go up another 1,000% or 10,000%. I mean, I'm no investment expert. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but it just looks awfully good to me. It's going to follow Bitcoin's path, and Bitcoin's at $800 per Bitcoin right now, whereas Quark is still down at a penny per Quark. So it's still got a lot of room to run.
Yeah,
$10 is not going to break the bank. If you want to invest $10, even if you lost it all, it's not going to ruin you or anything. But if it does go up in value exponentially like that, you'll be glad you did it.
I bought last year at a Liberty Forum in New Hampshire, the Bitcoin, like a couple of Bitcoin guys were there, and this was when I was just hearing about this stuff, and they had like this little like makeshift ATM machine type thing. Like it was maybe the size of a small like stereo speaker, and I was like a little bit skeptical. So I was like, okay, well, let me just try it. I had about $40 to spare in my pocket, so I stuck two $20 bills into this little ATM machine, and you take your cell phone. You go to the website and you wave your cell phone over one of those like square code things, and it transfers and changes it to Bitcoin, and so now my Bitcoins are over $1,000. So just about like a year ago.
Yeah, that's and Quark is going to probably go to the same place. It's just going to go there a lot more quickly because now people realize that this can really happen. It's not just a fluke. These things can run. I just got the coolest comment on my Facebook page that I want to read to you. Just take a second. Okay. This is from an artist friend of mine. He says, I'm currently reading the book called For Us, The Living by Robert Heinlein. It's short and pretty amazing. He describes a work based in 2086 that demolished fractional reserve banking, implemented a public banking system which uses its funds to create and distribute something akin to an unconditional basic income. It was written in 1938, but only published in 2003. It's an amazing read. Could be possibly be a great foundation for a new documentary.
And say the name of the book again. For Us.
For Us the Living by Robert Heinlein.
The living. The living. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to live.
I wonder why it took so long to publish.
I don't know. I just found out about it literally half an hour ago, and just as you all called on Skype, I just ordered it off of Amazon. So that's really all I know. But I mean, humanity is just being completely choked to death by this debt money system. It's clear that people are eventually going to find a way around this. These guys are rich and fat and slow, and we can beat them.
Yeah. All they know how to do is the same thing over and over and over again anyway. Like, they are so not adaptable to change. So even the slightest shift in the system can just send these people, like, crashing down. Like, they wouldn't know what to do.
I'll tell you a term I can't stand is when people refer to them as elite or the elite. There's nothing elite superior about them. There's nothing genius about counterfeiting money. You don't have to be smarter or better than anybody to basically just print money or digitize it and steal it.
And they rule by threats of violence, and people understand that, and they're naturally going to push against it. And now this is hurting so many people that there's becoming a very broad-based consensus, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide. I guarantee you there are groups of people just like us talking over this exact same issue in every nation on this planet right now at this very second. This is becoming a real force worldwide, and I just don't see how they're going to be able to hold it together for that much longer.
So let me just ask you, you don't think that hopefully the American people haven't gotten too complacent and they're not going to be able or be prepared to make this transition to like a Bitcoin or a Quark coin or something, your old-fashioned kind of people that are not very technical, and they'll be like, oh my God, what the hell is a Quark Bitcoin or something?
Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people like that, and I was one of those until a week ago. So, I mean, I freely admit my ignorance and the error of my ways. And now I understand that this is just another complementary currency. It's just one that, in order to trade on the internet, had to have extraordinary security features. And the first one, was, it could have been implemented better. And so now people sincerely interested in doing the right thing have created a better one. There are over 100 other types of cryptocurrencies out there, and it doesn't matter if you kill one. Another one is going to come forth because it's a natural expression of humankind's trying to escape from this vulture debt money system.
People do the learning curve on technology. If you look at, there was even resistance to cell phones for a lot of people that I don't want that, and I'm not going to text, I'm not going to push the letters, I hate that, and I'm not going to do a touch screen, but they're doing it now. Pretty much everyone has a cell phone and uses it, including, I guess, the stereotype of the elderly or whatever that aren't tech savvy. They are. My grandmother's 85, and she can build a website. She can do it all. She's learned how to do it. People will adapt to the times. Nobody likes to do it in the beginning, but we all end up doing it.
Right. Would you guys say that this Bitcoin or Quark coin is kind of like a digital greenback? Would that be something? Maybe?
No, because a greenback was debt-free, government-issued money. That's why I say it's a good complementary currency. It's and I wouldn't want a transnational currency at all. I think that's way too consolidated. I think you still need your sovereign, debt-free national money systems. But there is just oodles of room for complementary currencies. And, right now our attempts at complementary currency before these digital cryptocurrencies were just really kind of pathetic. I mean, I know several guys who have just spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to make them happen and pouring their lives into them, and they're still very, very ineffective. This is a serious challenge to the debt money system.
Do you think they're scared over at the Fed?
Well, I think they are scared, but Bernanke just came out last week as well as the FBI saying, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. And there is nothing, because there's 120 or 117 of them out there. They're transnational. They can't do anything to regulate them outside of the borders of the United States anyway. I mean, there's just nothing they can do other than try to control it. And of course, the theory is that that was something, one of the factors behind the creation of Bitcoin, and maybe it is, maybe not. It's not. I'm not even going to argue the point right now. I just know one that's better, that's more deconsolidated, and can only be mined by PCs. It cannot even be mined by the big specialized hardware, which only J.P. Morgan or Goldman Sachs is able to afford.
Exactly. Right, like in Canada, they actually limit the hardware. So I know people in Canada who were asking Americans to covertly mail them the stuff they would need to mine the bitcoins because they can't even order it. So I mean, that one of the flaws, one of the many flaws with that is, if you got a better mining system, you're going to get more coins. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that, but this is a different system. You can't lump them all. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are other cryptocurrencies that are functional and do what the Bitcoin was hyped to do without the flaws that Bitcoin has.
And the people controlling our debt currency now, like, there's no way that they could just like buy up, like all the Bitcoin.
No, absolutely not. Not at least not with Quark, just because it's so distributed. It's already in the hands of thousands of people, and if somebody tried to go around and buy them all up from each individual person, well, somebody wouldn't sell, because naturally the price would work inversely to the consolidation of it. And so even if they had all the money in the world, they still couldn't buy all the quarks in the world.
See, that is a really excellent security measure there.
I think quarks are going to I think they're going to dominate. I think they're going to eventually become more expensive than Bitcoins. I don't know that for sure, but I just feel real good about it, or else I wouldn't be behind it.
And how is Jekyll Island doing, Bill?
Well, it's selling very slowly. I didn't like the original edit, and I just finished a different edit of it, so we've got it down to 88 minutes, and this was at the suggestion of the network that's going to play it if we could get it down below 90 minutes. And so I spent about 3 weeks doing it, and so now it's done, and it's in LA, and we'll see what happens.
Can you say who the network is?
I could say who the network. No, I probably couldn't say. I shouldn't do that.
Okay.
It's not ABC, CBS, or NBC. It's one of the smaller ones, but still very significant for a monetary reform film.
Is there a time frame as to when it would be aired?
No, but you'll be first to know.
Oh, great! That's all I need to know. So, what are you going to be doing for Thanksgiving?
Going up into the mountains of North Carolina and having dinner with family.
Cool. Do you eat turkey?
Oh, of course. How about you?
I'm not going to have any turkey.
We actually don't have turkey in Japan unless you go to Costco, which is amazing. Yeah. So we'll be having chickens maybe.
Yeah, I can't.
That's something I miss the most food-wise from the States is turkey. You don't have turkey in Japan.
You're not missing anything. The turkeys are grateful. So, okay, any last, so Bill, where can people find you? What's your website? And
well, you can't find me. You can't find me at all, except on my YouTube's comments, because my website has been completely obliterated this last week. I don't know what's going on, but you get a page expired. So just forget about my website. Let's talk about rockets.
I linked to yours, and it might have got. Sometimes you get too much traffic, it can crash too. But hopefully, Bill and I might be working together in the future, because the still reports that he has on YouTube are excellent, and I'm going to kind of mirror what he's doing anyway on my site to increase traffic. And I really encourage that. I think there's some others who are coming on board as well, who I just think are great journalists or have great information, and we're going to be networking in the very near future. So, but my site is ancreport.com. And I have podcasts up there usually every other day, sometimes several in a day, as well as like press interviews, usually for foreign outlets, Russia Today, Press TV, things like that, and then articles, etc. So ancreport.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, you guys have been great. And we'll keep in touch and have you back on in the future. And good luck with with everything you do, and enjoy Japan.
Hey, well, thanks for having us, and Bill, thanks for recommending me.
Hey, you're the greatest. I'll tell you. Between you and Denninger, I couldn't ask for more.
Awesome.
Well, we're all going to be together soon, so yeah. All right. Well, thanks.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.